I got involved in gangs and I got involved in dumb shit. I almost got killed. I've been shot at. I've been stabbed. I've been run over with cars, beaten with baseball bats, the whole fucking nine. And this is not a sob story. It's just, this is how some people grew up.
Yeah. Flex Lewis, you're Straight Outta The Lair. I called today's guest the contentious composer of captivating chords. He's a heavy metal vocalist best known as the lead singer of the band Bad Wolves. His early childhood saw difficulties such as drug abuse, violence, jail, and murder. And on this episode, we discuss how life challenges can make us become better people regardless of color, religion, or political preference. I hope you enjoy this very special episode with a man who is as talented as he is controversial. Here's a podcast with Tommy Vext. You need cushions or anything else?
No, I'm just making sure I don't look fucking too obese.
You're not fighting. By the way, what are you weighing at right now?
270. Well, that's what your scale says.
Yeah, that scale's story.
Is it?
Yeah.
So probably like 265.
Yeah, you're looking good, mate.
I need to fucking shed some lbs to get a tour season.
When is that date coming up, actually, as I'm just in this? It's coming up, right?
The first show is going to be in LA at the Whiskey A Go Go, but it's actually this is a different show. This is my old band. So I was in a death metal, like melodic death metal band called Divine Heresy with Tim from Morbid Angel, Joe from Nile, and Dino from Fear Factory. And it was like an extreme metal band. We put out one record. Me and the guitar player didn't get along. I beat the shit out of him. He tried to fight me. I'm going to preface this. He thought it would be a good idea to try to check me, and I beat him up on stage. And then he talked.
On stage?
Oh, yeah. That was the first time. And then I left the band. I joined this punk band, Snot, and then he was running his mouth in the press. And I saw him backstage at a Slipknot show. And I beat his ass again. And we made up, 10, 12 years later.
Yeah.
I saw him at the NAMM convention. And this is after like Bad Wolves come out and I'm all like multi-platinum. Everyone's freaking out. I just walked right up to him. I was like, hey man, sorry I fucking beat your ass. He was like, I'm sorry too. And then it was cool. But he's not going to be a part of the reunion. He just... he actually got a manager to get the remaining members to have a meeting, and then we all got together and he just was no show.
Oh
yeah, so
all right, that's the fucking writers on the wall. Right
yeah,
there.
yeah. So it's like I'm too old and I'm too, I'm working with the people of abundance, not scarcity. So I wound up recruiting Mark Rizzo, who's played for Soulfly for the last 15 years, original guitar player of El Nino. And he actually played on the record that we did. He never got credit for it. He played the solos and some flamenco guitar stuff. So so we're doing that. And then Joe, the bass player, passed away in 2020. He overdosed tragically, and we had stayed friends throughout the years. And he's one of his favorite bass players was Adam Deuce from Machine Head. So I actually got Adam to play the show. Yeah. So Adam's gonna be doing stuff, and we're going to make a record in Vegas. The boys are flying in Saturday. Yeah, you'll see them. They'll be in the gym.
Yeah, I'll see them.
Yeah. So, just keep it, just grinding.
Yeah, you certainly are, mate. Obviously, I've been now able to see you a lot more over the last couple of months now, right?
A month, yeah. Yeah, since Olympia, right?
Yeah, welcome to Vegas. You're now a resident.
Officially.
And you have to get your driver's license now and all that shenanigans.
Yeah, well, I don't know I don't know if you know this, but apparently black people don't know how to get to the DMV.
Oh, Jesus.
If you ask Joe Biden. Everyone watches like it's going to be one of those kind of shows. All right.
We're just popping it off.
Going to talk shit.
There was my YouTube demonetized right there going
yep.
on Joe Biden. No, with us, mate, can you remember the first time you and I met?
Yeah, it was FitCon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we were. That was the first show. That was the first show I did after leaving Bad Wolves, and it was like 2021. And Keaton and the Baileys and put on FitCon, and they asked us to play, and I was like, hell yeah. They had asked a couple other bands who I'm not going to mention who are too afraid of COVID. So
Bro,
and everyone was too scared. I was like, I'm fucking there.
sign me up.
I'm like, sign me up, bro.
You love that.
I mean, it's like I had COVID twice already at that point. I got COVID in Milan in February of 2020. I was on tour with Megadeth and Five Finger Death Punch, and no one knew what it was, but 17 people on the tour all got a respiratory infection after we were in Italy, which was the European center of the outbreak.
Fucking yes.
So, logical deduction would conclude that we probably had gotten it first.
Wow.
But yeah.
Well, that show, talking about FitCon now, and when you and I met, when I went to Utah, of course, remember, it was like COVID tail end.
Yeah.
It all depends where you are in the world, right?
Yeah, it was the political. I guess it was COVID. Then became like what's that game, Twister, where you spin the thing?
Yeah,
it's like, but it's only blue or red dots. Like, oop, blue dot, COVID's still going. Red dot, no COVID.
And that was the truth. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was flying around at that point in time, and the only thing that kind of kept everything consistent were like the airlines. Government buildings that, some cases still. But I remember flying to FitCon with my mask on. I got off the plane and it was just like, Spot, who has got a mask on. Mm-hmm. And at that event, there was, thousands of people walking around.
It's like 5,000 people.
Yeah, and it was hardly anybody was wearing masks. And I was thinking, oh my God, when you've lived through that for 2 years, you're thinking, this is the old world.
Yeah.
You remember?
Well, dude, I went through COVID in LA.
Oh.
You know what I mean? And I was only on board for like the first month. And afterwards I was like, no.
Yeah,
And there's just too many people in my wheelhouse, right? Like I had people who work in politics and people who work in government, and one of my buddies is a very not too many people know who he is now. I don't talk about his name, but he was one of the guys who was talking to me. He's a virologist, right?
Yeah.
And then his buddy is an epidemiologist, and I know these guys because I know them, and they were like telling me exactly what's really good. Mm-hmm. So it looked like I was Vextradamus, like I had figured everything out already, and I was like a crazy conspiracy theorist. But I was, but there was a whole line of people on the front line of this who knew what was going on.
Yeah,
there were people who actually worked on the gain of function stuff in years prior, 4 or 5 years prior to the virus getting leaked or released, or the accident, or who knows, the allegedly. Origins, whatever. Yeah, allegedly. So I looked like a big old psychopath, but I was not having it.
You weren't.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
I remember between every song, any chance that you had, you spoke about, freedom, what the Constitution meant, everything. It was very. You remember too, back then, there was a lot of people like, you can't say that, Tommy. Come on, bro.
Well, the leftists and the media and big tech and Hollywood tried to brand associate patriotism with racism, which is bizarre.
Far right.
Right, yeah. But what is that? What does that even mean? And so, and it's interesting too, because like, I was talking about Gina Carano getting canceled on the Brad Lee show a couple weeks ago, and people were like, well, she said anti-Semitic remarks. I'm like, she didn't say anti-Semitic remarks. Mm-hmm. She said that the Democrats and these institutions are treating people the way that the Nazis treated the Jews before the Holocaust, which is exactly what they did do, right? They started to ostracize the Jewish people from their neighbors, and that's how it starts. And so first it became like anyone who had a different opinion than you was a racist, but then a lot, you have all these public people. You have me, you have David Harris Jr., you have the Hodge twins, who I see them here all the time.
Yep.
You have Candace Owens, and then you have the hip hop community. You have Topher, you got the Marine rapper, you have Bryson Grays, and all of a sudden, all these African American people who are like, no, this is not. No, we're not okay with this, and we don't automatically have to just think how you tell us to think and vote how you tell us to vote, and we're not buying the narrative. And then they told us that we were multiracial white supremacists. Right? So it was just absolute absurdity.
Yeah, the Hodge twins, you mentioned them, good friends of mine, good friends of the podcast. They have had a lot of shit for not, fighting the narrative, for not being the narrative, or what have they been called? They've been called.
They call us. Yeah, I'm like, okay.
Oh my God, yeah, it's crazy, right? And again, you're pigeonholed to be extreme if you point out. It's just fucking. It's common sense in many cases, and then
it's not so common sense, right? Because these campaigns, right? In order to like switch the presidency, there were multiple cascading cultural and social campaigns that were created by very brilliant, manipulative, foremost psychologists of the world. Because you got to understand, academia is in their pocket too. It's all and it's centered around the banks. Whoever's cutting checks, they can afford to take, very high functioning people who essentially have no morality, and they can buy them. And, they concocted this whole false ideology that all white people are inherently racist and everyone should feel bad because of the past, where it's like, it's like, I mean, dude, you're Irish, like,
well, okay.
But Irish people were slaves too. Irish and Italian people came to America and were enslaved. Well, they were all like forced to be enlisted into the military in order to get citizenship. You know what I mean? Our country's done horrible things to all races, and all cultures and all countries have done horrible things to other races because in general, humanity historically is flawed. And so what I saw happening is this leftist agenda of trying to isolate anyone who isn't an apologist, like a white apologist. They would call them allies, but it was just like, I saw videos of people kissing other people's boots and like, taking a knee and all this fucking weird shit. And like, you saw the politicians like Pelosi and Schumer dressing up like they were at fucking Wakanda, and it's just like, I'm like, yo, it's stop it. It's just like, you're fucking embarrassing yourselves and you're embarrassing the country on the world stage. Like, it's pathetic. And so, I didn't ascribe to all that stuff and I got dragged for it.
Yeah.
How
was it knowing that you have such a passion and your moral integrity was being sort of questioned in and everything that you were doing, and you stood your ground, knowing that shit, this could politically shoot me in the foot? Did that something that played heavy in you, or you would just say, "F it, this is who I am. I'm saying my piece, and then I'll deal with it"?
No, I mean, look, like, here's the thing. There are things I don't deal well with, and being threatened is one of them, right? And I think that for me, I represent the American dream, right? I was born a crack baby, right? I have a twin brother. My mother left us in the hospital, just left us, right? And I was born in South Brooklyn in the 80s, and I was adopted into another family. My dad did the best that he could. Unfortunately, he's an alcoholic. And then my brother had severe mental health issues. Our family split up. I was like on my own, as a teenager. I had to do whatever I had to do. And I got involved in gangs and I got involved in dumb shit. I almost got killed. I've been shot at. I've been stabbed. I've been run over with cars, beaten with baseball bats, the whole fucking nine. And this is not a sob story. It's just, this is how some people grew up.
Yeah.
Right. It just is what it is. So
I'll give you a circumstance.
Yeah. And so it's like, I fucking knew that I knew I needed to get out of where I was, and I was always a musician. I chased my career. I was singing since I was 12 years old, but I was also drinking and doing drugs since then too.
Very young age.
Yeah. Because there was nobody watching, and so, we do what we see our parents do. And then I moved to LA and I thought I was going to be safe because I got a record deal. But, I wound up getting into drugs harder and just getting into more trouble. And then I wound up fucking homeless and a homeless junkie. And I went to I went to I keep saying the F word, which is you gotta bleep all these out.
Get.
YouTube.
And already demonetized, don't worry.
Yeah. But listen, again, it's like the fast story of my life is I got sober, I got a sponsor, I got a job, I got a scholarship to stay at a sober living. The Grammy Association actually gave me a scholarship to live for 4 months in a sober living. I worked as a security guard. I taught singing because I had sang so long, and I had put some records out on a major label and flopped my career. And I wound up teaching other singers singing lessons and live performance. I would hustle anything, and I had no car, rode the bus everywhere, and that was my life. And I got sober, and I got a year sober, and I thought everything was going to be good. Then I moved to New York City. I moved back home to fix my relationship with my mother and my sister because they hadn't had a sober man in the family since my dad picked up. Your
mom, your biological mom?
No, the one who raised me.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and then my twin brother famously tried to murder me. He broke into the place, and I came home mid-home invasion, and then he beat me to death with a crowbar, broke my skull, my arm, my spleen ruptured. I literally bled to death. And I survived, came back, stayed sober. I got shit like my
Wait, before we go into this.
That's a whole, but I want to get to this point.
Okay,
I want to get to the point, right? So this is the abridged version.
Yeah.
So then, I recovered from surgery, and Steven Tyler from Aerosmith let me live at his house to recover because I was friends with his daughter. And so that's the miracle is I'm sober and all the good things and the service I've done. And now my energy is changing. People are trying to help me. And then, I got to go in a witness protection program. My brother tried to put a contract to have me murdered, and then he bench warranted, and the FBI couldn't find him. Then they finally caught him. I testified against him, and then I went through the whole gamut. I got suicidally depressed, and the only thing that helped me was sponsoring other people. Then I started working in recovery. So then I started helping other people professionally. Then my boss was like, "Wow, this guy's killing it," and he invested in me and helped me become a certified sober coach in the state of California. Wow. Then I started working with celebrities, big, real celebrities, people who can't go outside. Yeah. Right. It causes a riot.
Is there anybody you can mention? Or
Justin Bieber is the only person I publicly have ever mentioned.
Justin Bieber.
Yeah, I lived with him. And so, then obviously everyone knows I worked with Five Finger Death Punch before taking over and singing. Yeah. And then I got a record deal. Then I put it out. Then I went platinum. Then I'm like, gave my mom a down payment for a house, and and all this stuff happened, right? And so that this whole abridged version is why the American dream is so important, because only in America can a mixed race crackhead baby become a multi-platinum selling sober coach to the stars, donate millions of dollars to charity, donate hundreds of thousands of dollars to various charities, right? And have a voice and make a difference and an impact on other people's lives, right? The reason why people like me and Jelly Roll, people like us, is because we have something to say. And we live in a world and a culture, especially the entertainment culture. And now since COVID, it's been proven, every celebrity is just a vapid, hollow eggshell of a person who's willing to, they'll read the script to whatever the highest bidder says to say. And so when you have men who have, been locked up, have sins and have made mistakes and come back and found God and found service in their community and learn what it is to actually take what your craft, whatever it is, and become a champion, that's worth keeping. And I've been to other countries all over the world, and you can't do that in all those other countries. No. Most of them you can't. No. It's very difficult because there's a glass ceiling, and you can't switch. You can't be born poor and become rich. That's the American dream. Yeah. And they're trying to kill it. And that's what I'm fighting for.
Yeah. So that is the overlining story to all this is you are a product of the American dream. I'm a product of the American dream. I wouldn't have come here had I not seen this future for me, my family, and everything else. And you know my story. Yeah. Everybody who's watching me on the podcast knows my story. And bro, what a fucking story. There's a lot of things that I didn't even know, and I've done a lot of research going into doing this with you. So there's a lot of things that were mentioned, but I think the most impressive thing is, how long have you been sober now?
13 and a half years.
Bro, I gotta give you a fucking pound for that. Incredible.
See, I always say I shouldn't get an award for running out of a burning building. You know what I mean?
That's very impressive, man.
Yeah.
13 years.
Been through a lot too, man.
Yeah. You've seen a lot of things. I mean, shit, I think you blow me away. So I want to go back a little bit because you mentioned your brother.
Yeah,
That is something the viewers I know will want me to mention on. So what the hell? How did that even go down where your brother turned against you enough sort of to try and burglarize you and then take your life?
I mean, I think this is... So I wrote a song called "Remember When" on the Bad Wolves record. The music video is I think it's like 60 million views or something, but it's an illustration of our story. It's not just my story, right? It's what happened to he and I. Yeah. And the moral of the story is, you know, and my brother is also a perfect example of choices. We both came from the same thing. Mm-hmm. We both have the same problems. Yeah. We have the same blood and DNA, and we had all the same, you know, we had trials. It was not easy. And he chose, you know. I went the wrong way for a little bit. I got scared straight. I almost got killed when I was 19, the first time I almost got killed. And it scared me straight. And I was like, I don't want to sell drugs. I don't think this shit is cool, right? I'm doing music and I got a job at a pet store. You know, and then I got a job as a bouncer, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. And I joined the gym, and, you know, and I was fat too, and I lost like 100 pounds. And so, you know, these things that happen, you know, what happened in our life is that we went, because of our choices, we went further and further and further and further apart, and it estranges your relationship, right? Because we're not the same anymore, and we didn't talk for a long time. And when I had seen him, when he had broken into the house, he was kind of startled that I had come home. I don't think he thought anyone was going to be home. And he wanted me to, and his story was he wanted me to help him kill this guy, and which is not irregular, right. You know. And it's like my brother's a murderer. Yeah. It's not everyone we know. That's what he does. Yeah, that's his job. That's his job. Yeah, and so I was like, no. He wanted me to. So earlier that day he tried to rob a pet store that I used to work at. Fuck off. So the guy Pete, the guy who owns the store, his nephew was friends with us growing up, and he was kind enough to give me a job when I was like, after I got my ass beat and I got out of the hospital, and I was like, I don't want to be a piece of shit anymore. And he fucking paid me $8 an hour, and I fucking took care of goldfish and parrots and snakes and mice and like whatever. And I worked there for years, and you know, he came to all my shows, him and his wife and kids, and like he'd bring everybody and they'd come to the shows, and his sister. And
were you doing music at that point in time too? Still?
Yeah, I never stopped doing music. That's the one thing that was congruent, because I'm addicted to music. Yeah. And so my brother wanted me to help kill this guy. First of all, I don't kill people. You know what I mean? Yeah. Unless I have to. Unless I have to. Unless I'm put in a position, right? And so I'm like, no, dude. And I tried to, 12-step him. And I took him outside and I was like, you're sick and you have a disease and I'm sober and I'll help you, but you can't stay here because you're obviously high. So I need you to go sleep this off. And I was like, I'm not, he's like, but you can't fucking be here right now. And he didn't like that very much. And so I went back in the house, and then I realized my sister lives 5 blocks away. He's definitely going to go there next. So I was like, let me run to her apartment. And he had gone in my neighbor's garage. My neighbor was a mechanic, and he took a big crowbar and hid in the bushes. And when I walked out to the corner, he just bashed my skull in. So he hit me from behind. I started fighting him because you don't realize. Like, I thought I got punched. I didn't know. I got my bell rung, and then he broke my arm with it. And then I tok a beating.
He was swinging to kill.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was premeditated, right? So then I wound up. I got out of the way and everything went into slow motion, and I ran to my neighbors and collapsed, and they called 911, and and then the whole shit happened, and I was I came to in the ambulance, you know, because you start it's like being drunk, right? Like, and I'm alcoholic, so I know what it's like to black out. But when this happened, I was over, like, I think I was 14 or 15 months sober. So I'm just like, you know, you're like, I'm in an ambulance. It's like, the is this happening? Like, then you're like, I'm in the fucking ER, and then, you know, and my mom had showed up to the ER, and my sister was there, and, like, you know, like, the girl I was dating, it was fucking traumatic. And my mom held my hand and watched me die. And I had a seizure. So my spleen, they didn't know what was going on. And my spleen burst, and, you know, it was pouring into my I forgot the name of the cavity, but where your organs lay, there's the space in between. And so I looked pregnant, but then
it's pulling up. And
then my legs were like having like muscular seizure because there was no blood in them.
Yeah.
And I was like literally pouring out. And and then I was praying to God, and I was like, please not today. And then I just nodded out. And then I had like a white light experience.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Was there anything you've seen in a
Yeah. I mean, I've talked about this a couple of times, but it's like, I definitely felt the presence of God. You know, I traveled through like, and to preface this, so like, and I say this, right, I have my own belief systems. I respect other people, you know, whether you believe, whether you're agnostic, whether you're atheist, whatever. And, you know, some people, you know, I never knew anything about a near-death experience till I had one. So there was no point of reference, and I just had this experience. Yeah. And I went through this like colorful like tunnel. It was almost like Doctor Strange, you know, when he gets thrown through the inner dimensions. That's what it felt like. And then I came into like this light, and like I knew it was God, and I had no anxiety, and it wasn't a person. It was just like
like an energy.
It's like the opposite of space, right? If you think about space. Outer space, it's cold and empty, and there's nothingness, eternal nothingness. But the love of God is an eternal something. It's like the everything good multiplied by infinity all at once. Wow. And you know, and you and then basically like you start to remember that you're not a person. And that your soul has been alive. You've been a consciousness for thousands of years.
Wow.
And it was like waking up from a nap. So it was like I died, but it was like my life on earth was such a short time. And it was like I took a power nap. And I was like, oh, yeah, like my real self was like, oh, you know.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, and then I arrived at the end of this light in a white place, and there were other beings there, and I knew them too.
You know,
but they weren't like people. They weren't like people I knew. It was like my soul family, I think. You know, and it was like everyone was like, "Welcome back!" Like yo, it was crazy. You know, like it was one of those things. And everyone like we communicates telepathically, right? There's no words. You just know, and you transfer knowing. Yeah. And then one of them was like, "Oh, you don't have to stay." Like, and then I recollected, oh, I didn't do what I was supposed to do, and then I fell, just through the bro.
You had that feeling, that sensation of falling.
It was like going through. It's like if you could. It's like parachute jumping off a satellite from space, because I felt it like I went back through the Earth's atmosphere, and I literally landed in the hospital, and I was standing above my body in the ER, and then I like went back in my body, and man, when I sat up, it felt like do you have siblings?
I have two brothers, yeah.
So your brothers ever hold you down in the pool or like at the beach underwater and with you, and then they finally let you up?
Older friends.
Yeah. So that's what it was like. Like, okay. And you're like, wow. I was like, whoa. And everything came on.
Yeah.
And my nurse was my high school girlfriend's best friend who I hadn't seen in like 15 years. Yeah. And I thought I was dead. I was like, Jesse, I'm like, oh my God, I'm still in my body. Like, you know, and she's like, well, she said, welcome back. And I was like, what happened? She's like, well, you died. Yeah. And I was like, I did die. And I had to write everything down. So I didn't remember. Yeah. Yeah.
Straight away.
And there was a guy, and then there was a guy who was standing outside my door, and he was like, hey, I'm from 12-step programs. I heard that you were sober.
Jeez. And
I was like, yeah. So like when I was being rushed to the hospital, I called the guy who helped me get sober, and I was like, I think I'm dying. I love you. Bye. I forgot. Yeah, and he called this guy in New York, and the guy just showed up, and he sat and waited for me to come out of a coma.
How long we went to the?
Well, he was coming. I think I was out for like 2 days, and he came back.
Wow.
On his break, yeah, and then he became like he's like, I call him Uncle George.
Yeah,
yeah. Him and his wife were like part of my family.
When you had this experience, and you mended yourself, did you have a different like feeling? Just kicked your step? Did you, because you felt that you'd gone through what you had gone through, and you experienced what you felt was God? Or was God? Do you feel now that?
Well, you feel like, dude, just every time I talk about this and bring it into recollect, like the next thing I eat after this is going to be the best meal ever, right? Because it changes your perspective, and it's like, I think that's another reason why cancel culture or the fear of COVID or this, that, the other, it didn't really work, because I'm not afraid to die. I genuinely am not afraid. Like, what are you going to do? Send me home? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it sucks down here most of the time, you know? I mean, like, being alive is great, but it's incomparable to God's grace. Yeah. And it's like, I'm a doubting Thomas, right? I'm literally, that was my given name when I was a kid. And it's like, I need to see things to believe them. And part of my healing journey with my brother was like, my perspective switch was that, yes, this man tried to kill me, but what he did was he gave me the greatest gift, because I am truly a free man, right? I'm, and it's on a day-to-day basis, we have to ask God to relieve us of the bondage of self, like our worldly calamities and our troubles and our anxieties, I'm not going to get what I want, or like people will judge me, or, all these things that I think evil men and women use to control other people. You know what I mean? So are we pausing?
No.
Okay. Sure we don't have another technical difficulty.
When you're talking, I'm communicating through sign language with my producer.
Oh, okay.
So don't worry.
He's like, delete all this.
He's in the background like, oh, stop.
He's talking too much truth.
The fucking SIM card's not in. No.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, you have a strong belief. You got your religious beliefs. Has that affected any of your music, having such a strong belief, and also opinions, strong opinions on other things too?
Well, like I think there's a difference between spirituality and conscious contact with God and religion, right?
Can you repeat that again? That's fucking deep.
Yeah, there's a difference between having a conscious contact with God and a spiritual relationship versus religion. Because, I mean, you can go, how many people do you know that go to church and then sit around and judge the other members of the congregation? You know what I mean?
I lived in Tennessee. It was like 90% of the people.
Yeah, and so, before I got sober, I had stopped believing, and my disconnect, I grew up in a church that was not practicing the principles of Christ's life. And as a young person, I already don't like being told what to do. And I sure as shit, I'm not going to listen to somebody who's not living the shit that they're talking about. You know what I mean? So the false representation of God through bad Christians pushed me out and disconnected me from what all children know. The reason why kids know that God is real, you don't have to tell them, is because they were just there. It takes a long time to forget. So as babies start to learn and everything, they start forgetting who they truly are in their eternal selves. You know what I mean? And so, what was presented to me just intuitively, I was like, this is not right. Right? God is not hateful or judgmental or, it doesn't want to cast me into a fucking lake of fire. And so there are things that I don't, I can only believe what I've experienced. And, that's what faith is for. But now it's almost like, well, I already, I know. Like, it's weird.
I'd agree because I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't have my faith, and I'm not like super involved with any church. I've went and done my fair share as a kid, and the churches I went to were very strict. Stand up, sit down, wooden seats, and then you're like, oh my god, your friends don't start going, and then it's not cool to go to church and stuff like that. So, and then I played rugby every Sunday, so rugby took over. That was my, so religion wasn't really in my family. My grandparents went periodically.
Sure.
But then as I grew up and I came to this country, I realized that I leaned heavily on that because there was a lot of times that I had this unknowing. I knew what I was doing was right, but then I had this confliction with, should I go home, see my family? I'm on my own here, I'm trying to do this, I have no money, I'm eating fucking tuna. And I'm like, I know I can be the best. And then you have, it's just like, God's on the shoulder, the devil's on the other. It's like, yeah, you can go and fucking bum around. Go and see the boys. They're just fucking around. And I was like, no, I got to train tomorrow. I got cardio. So I had a lot of distractions when I came here that I never had in the UK because it's new. It's a new country. Everything's bigger. You're in the United States.
Yeah.
And, I never thankfully got caught up in the drug culture. I recognized that at a very young age. That I got a lot of friends who are on vacation, not on this earth anymore. And I got a lot of friends who are still in the game, doing really well at it. Only a matter of time. Something happens or they get caught. It's only a matter of time. But listen, they're my friends, good people. I don't judge. I was in a bodybuilder.
Everyone's on their own journey.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that it's like, I think church is for people who are afraid to go to hell, and I think spirituality is for people who have already been to hell. That's it. Right.
You've been to hell, right?
I know. I already know what it's like. I've seen hell on earth. I've seen horrible, inexplicably horribly violent things. I've experienced abuse but I've also seen miracles. I've seen one homeless guy give another homeless guy $1, and the other homeless guy was me.
Wow. You've gone through some hard experiences, man.
Yeah, but it's, in recovery, it says, no matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see that our experience can benefit others. So sometimes these things, like, you have to train yourself. A lot of people are like, it's not about willpower, it's about discipline. But there's something greater than discipline, and that's the little voice, right? The little voice that's like, no, just, you got to go do this.
Yeah.
And you have to practice obeying it. Because the small voice, like, dude, the devil's always loud. Like, there can't be darkness without light. Right? So the loud, shouting, screaming, self-abusive voice that I always had, oh, you're fat, get up, I could never turn my body into what I wanted to until I started working out and be like, I'm just expressing gratitude for the vessel that I've been given, and I want to increase it and make it better. And the people who speak to themselves like that grow differently, right? It's like they tell people, oh, if you talk to your plants, they're going to grow healthy and strong. I'm like, well, how do you talk to yourself? And a lot of people who grow up with abuse, whether it was in their families or sometimes at church or sometimes at school or whatever, when we're developing our our residual self-image is embedded with the opinions of other negative people that place those on us. And if we don't actively work to rid ourselves of those, they will dominate our lives and they will prohibit us from reaching our maximum potential, which, by the way, on a spiritual level, it is God's will that you absolutely maximize your potential. that you're on this earth to live out the example of his will for you and the power to carry it out. Right? So if we're not, what do we, I didn't get sober to be boring. I didn't get sober to just, so what, and it's like, and that's for everything. All work is honorable.
Yeah.
If you're a fucking mailman, be the best fucking mailman. If you're a mechanic, be the best mechanic. If you're a cop, be the best cop. I've been a janitor. I've been a dog walker. I've worked at a pet store. I've been a bodyguard. I've been a sober coach. I ran a sober facility. I mean, I cleaned human feces off a ceiling in a fucking junior high school building for kids for special needs kids. Like, I've done it all.
And you cleaned a fucking bathroom at the Dragons?
I know. Oh yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Like now, so the funny thing is like, if a bathroom is dirty, I clean it. Even if during Olympia here, there were like a lot of people in here who were not members, and they were they were paying for the day, and there would be piss on the floor or piss on the seat, and I'm like,
That's the truth. This is the truth.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's like I went to Sweden with Max and our girlfriend Lauren, and we went to some burger joint. We were walking, and Lauren had to go to the bathroom. Like we were like, oh, we got to go take a piss. We were walking for like 5 miles. We were just exploring, and some kid must have shit all over the fucking toilet. It was like a fucking nightmare. And she opened the door. And she's like, nope. And I was like, how bad is it? I was like, oh, fuck, all right. So I'm in there, and like I went to the front and I took the COVID fucking. I was like cleaning up the whole that fucking shit you could have ate off that toilet after I was done with it. And I came out, I'm like, it's all good. And she's like, you did that for me? I was like, I did. Yeah. You're a woman.
Yeah.
Right? It's okay. It's okay for, if I have a girlfriend, she don't take out the trash. You know what I mean? Even if I have a female roommate.
She doesn't, you said?
No, I don't. It's like women don't touch garbage.
Oh, shit.
You know what I mean?
My wife's watching this podcast, bro.
That's okay. After they have kids and they've cleaned up poopy, they probably are desensitized to it, but it's still like it's that's how my father raised me. My dad was a Marine. It was like very traditional, male men things, open the door,
Yeah.
whatever,
Chivalry.
Which we've lost.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of gentry stuff that has come and gone. I try to, with my relationship with Ali, I do love that old school mentality. My grandfather was, just a preface, my grandfather just passed away. But legend in my town, small little village, kind of when I was growing up, we would go on long walks, didn't have no interest in learning how to drive, didn't give a He would walk everywhere, and just, I remember walking around the village where he lived, and lived majority of his life, and everybody would beep the horn when we going past. People would stop and talk to him. They would come out of the gas station and say, hey, what were you? And then
So that's where it comes from?
Yeah, my grandfather's a chit chatter. He loves city talk.
But that's, if anybody who doesn't know Flex, wherever you go, someone's like, hey, he's like, what's up, man? But that's what I love about you too, bro. You understand that everyone's already your best friend.
Yeah, I'm blessed, man. Same with you. You understand. But my grandfather, just to finish the story, he was a very tough guy. He worked in the mines. He'd work 12 hours on his hands and knees, riddled with arthritis later on in life because he was in literal water in his hands and knees with a pickaxe. No machinery back then.
What do they mine for?
Coal. And then they put it on the horse and cart and take it up to the top, and then they went electronic. My grandfather's been in 3 cave-ins in his life. God looked after him every time.
Damn.
Yeah, but with him, he was a tough guy, tough guy. And he would then get into some scraps,
I'm sure.
And I never knew growing up. My grandfather never told me a story about how tough he was, how much he kicked this guy's ass until years later. It's like, oh, I know your grandfather. He's a hell of a boy. See, did he tell you about that story? I was like, this my grandfather? You fucking serious?
Really?
Tough guy. Never threw it around, and he'd always give me these fucking lessons because I would go to school, and I hated my we call it the high school version, secondary school, we call it. Mm-hmm. My grandparents' house was literally the first house next to the school.
Oh, shit.
So I would, during lessons, run down the hill, fucking jump over, and my grandparents knew. They were like, what are you doing? I said, I fucking hate school. And then some days I'd go in, my shirt was ripped, I had blood on me, I was fighting. My grandfather would be like, tough guy, huh? You think you're fucking cool? And I would tell him a story about me fucking this guy up, you know? And he was like, you know, there's going to come a day where you're going to get your ass kicked. No matter how tough you are, there's somebody else tougher than you. And I was not expecting this. I wanted my grandfather to enjoy this story. And then later on, I heard all these stories, right? And he was trying to kind of, not groom me, but tell me in advance, like, the fucking world is tough. If you think you're going to out tough the world, no, it's not, you know? And that's the metaphor to a lot of things he's taught me. I learned a lot from him growing up. I was very blessed to have that relationship with my grandparents. But again, we didn't come from money, but what I did get, money can't buy, and that was knowledge, passed down knowledge. I see my grandfather open doors for my grandmother. I see my grandfather make copious amounts of cups of tea for my grandmother all day long, and food. And my grandmother then was you know, the perfect wife for my grandfather. And it got installed in me that, you know, that's how it should be. My father's a quiet man, worked his ass off. You know, my mum and dad, earlier stages of when I was a kid, my mum would work as a nurse before she became disabled. She would go to work, my dad would come home. My mother and father had only seen each other on the weekends. Oh, wow. Just to get us through school. And you find out all these stories later on in life when you're older. And now I'm 39 years old. I appreciate it so much more, you know?
Isn't it crazy how you see, and this is what I've observed, right? Because our grandparents and parents' generation, like my grandparents, you know, went through the Great Depression together where they had to ration, you know, animal fat, right? Yeah. They'd like save bacon fat and grease to cook with, and they had, you know, they would eat like going on bread lines and getting soup, and they stayed together, you know, forever. That was it. And you know, during COVID, people couldn't be in the house with Netflix, right? There was DoorDash, Uber Eats, Netflix, every channel you could possibly watch. Everything. The government was sending people free money, and the divorce rate went up another like 60%.
Yeah, people were forced to live with one
another.
another.
They're like, oh my God, you're chewing so loud, I can't deal with this. But that's what's happened. Like, you know, there's no trauma of privilege, right? All there is like the lethargy left over of abundance. There's like too much. There's too much abundance of substanceless things, and people have now learned that. Well, we've switched where it's like things are made to be used, and people are made to be loved. But now people love things and use other people, and that's what the disconnect, the generational disconnect, is. And that's not how human beings are supposed to be. We're not supposed to be in VR. You know, we're not supposed to be on our phones 24/7. We're not supposed to, you know, all this stuff that was meant to connect us is actually become a tool of separatism, right? You look at the global divide, or the divide in American politics, where people who, you know, they were like, I was talking about this, I was talking about this the other day, but a couple people have come to me and like apologized for stopping being my friend. You know, I had a friend who like had a health condition, and I raised $70,000 for him so they could get fixed up, and then they didn't like what I was posting about COVID, and they stopped being my friend. Wow. And then later they got 2 jabs and ended up in the hospital. Yeah. And they were like, oh, you were right. Yeah. And I was like, well, this is not how I want to be right. Yeah. Like I should just be allowed to have a difference of opinion, and you be like, I still love you. Yeah. Right. And it's like, that's the problem with the scarcity, right? I had just one of the most famous families on the planet. I'm talking about literally, like, I'm not going to drop names, but the son called me yesterday, and you know, he messaged me on Instagram, and
big family. I know who this is.
Yeah. And he called me, and he was like, hey man, like I just wanted to say, bro, like I'm sorry I unfollowed you and I stopped talking to you a couple years ago. Like we got fully sucked up into the Hollywood craziness, and like I thought you were out of your mind, and I thought you were gonna get people killed, and then, you know, it's like, and he was like, he's like, you know, everything is terrible now, and like you were right about Trump, and like I never even voted, but now I'm gonna vote for him, and like No one's allowed to say anything because everyone's afraid they're going to not get work, right?
That's the problem with Hollywood right now.
Yeah, they're all afraid, but this is a good sign because people at this tier of celebrity, this is as high as it gets.
Yeah.
And so for the families to be having these discussions is severe. You're like, oh, like it's crumbling.
No, the son, did he mention that this is a conversation within the household?
Yeah, well, they're adults and they live separately, but it's just things that, and it's kind of unilateral. Like the other people are like, this is f***ed, and like what the f***, we were wrong. This is like the shit that's going on is crazy. Everyone's afraid. Crime is out of control. The homeless are out of control. The taxes are out of control. The governor of California is completely insane. Like,
do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, and so. And then at the same time, it's like, we get a lot of, I get a lot of flack, and I'm going to preface this like, so when I talk about medical malpractice injuries that have been going on, you have to understand, like, people on Twitter are like, oh, now's not the time, and I'm like, you got, like, you're like, and this is like. This is when my ego comes in, and my ego's response is, you're f***ing nobody. You don't know anyone. You don't talk to these guys. You don't know them. They listen to my music. They've been to my concerts. They've been on the guest list. Their wives DM me. They're afraid. You can't, like, I don't care what the league says. People are collapsing, right? Over multiple different sports globally, professional athletes are having heart attacks.
It's crazy.
And
scary.
Everyone's like, whenever it happens, people are like, no, it's not the time. And I'm like, you wanted me to show you proof of vaccination to buy a hot dog in New York City in 2021. You wanted me. I had to show proof of vaccination to use a public restroom in New York City. Yeah. Like if there was a like in a restaurant or in a grocery store or whatever.
No, to buy a hot dog on the street.
Yeah. They wouldn't serve you. You couldn't go into Starbucks. Couldn't get a slice of pizza. Couldn't do anything. Right. Wow.
That happened to me in Italy, by the way.
Yeah, but this was the
thing. Is the U.S.
But this was globally. It was wherever. It was wherever the liberals had complete control over everything, right? And so okay, cool. Like, you want me to show you this, and now 1,700 people have collapsed, and hundreds are dead, and maybe we should talk about it.
Yeah.
Maybe the pharmaceutical companies did a bad job and don't want to admit that people are getting sick, right? Because if they would just admit it, then everyone should go see a cardiologist immediately, which I recommend. My mom is vaccinated. My sister is vaccinated. I'm not better than anybody else. I have a healthy fear of the government because I've seen what the government does. And I'm just too well aware of the medical industry, right? I've seen I've been to the VA hospital with my father, who's a veteran, while he was trying to get sober. I've seen how they treat veterans, right? That's the people who protect the freedoms and sovereignty that we have, and this is how our government treats them. You think they give a f*** about you? Yeah. What, are you crazy? They don't care. Neither political party, both of them made money off of it, right? That's the thing. The other thing is, like, people are like, why is COVID lasting so long in all these places? Because the politicians, and most people, you could look this stuff up. If you're an elected official, your stocks have to be posted publicly. It's a law. So you can look all this shit up. These people took out stock in these major pharmaceutical companies right before they announced that the medication was available to the public, and then they got stock options. The stocks went crazy because they took everyone's trillions of tax dollars and invested it into these companies, paid themselves out of it, waited until the 11th hour when they decided when COVID was over. It wasn't because, It wasn't because COVID was over then. It's because they had made enough money. They made their quota. And the day that the fucking guy from Pfizer, the CEO of Pfizer, sold $300 million worth of stock, the next day everybody emptied out and it was over. It was insider trading. It's one of the biggest insider trading scams of the global history.
What are the SEC doing though? Are they investigating it?
What are they going to do?
That's what I'm saying.
Who owns them? Right? The FDA. Look at the FDA. Why do you look what they're doing on food?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We talked about this too. Like, you know, look what they put in kids' food. They put poison in the food here in America because the fucking food companies. But this is what the other thing that people don't understand: the merger. The food companies and the drug companies work together. The food companies make cheap, shitty products that make you sick. They make food-like products with carcinogens, too much sugar, all kinds of shit, and it's not regulated. It's supposed to be regulated, but it's regulated by panels of government officials who are getting checks from the food companies, so it can't accurately be regulated. And the food makes people sick, and the drug companies literally create the solution to the sickness that they're feeding you.
Yeah.
Half the time, I wouldn't be surprised if the drug companies were giving ingredients to the food companies to put into snacks and other things that are going to cause long-term effects that they already have a cure for.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. But like I said, it's just like at this point, you know, you start to look at things and you're like, well, it's only a conspiracy until it comes true.
Well, all you got to do is kind of peel back the Wizard of Oz curtains, right? And peek behind it. Once you start going down that road, you start thinking, oh shit. So
when you
right now,
the money.
right now we're having a conspiracy conversation.
Sure.
And it can be tagged like that. But as soon as you go down a garden path and just focus on one of these topics that we've spoken about, you start realizing it's like, oh shit, this is no fucking joke. Maybe I should start, if you just focus on the food, right?
Sure.
And you start seeing really what's in, you know, various different ingredients in different foods that really has no bearing in there. And then you go to another country who has really stringent, you know, food laws.
Like,
Norway.
Like Scandinavia.
Scandinavia, yeah, exactly. We're on the same
Very
page.
strict.
Holy shit. And they want...
the life expectancy of people.
Shocking.
And the quality of life, despite it being cold as
Shocking, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. But that is the kind of fucking rabbit hole you can get and find yourself down. I haven't... Go on.
Oh, I was going to say, because we were talking about Scandinavia too, I spent a couple of weeks in Sweden in November, and they just didn't do COVID.
They didn't.
The news and the government were like, oh yeah, we're going to do it. And the people of Sweden were like, no, we're not going to do this. Like, we're not closing. Like, no, everyone just wash your hands and use common sense.
Yeah.
And then their market didn't tank.
Yeah.
You know, that now it's tanking, but it's being manufactured because they have to bring everybody down to the fucking level. But, you know, that's how simple the solution to COVID would be. The other thing that people don't understand too is like it's impossible for a pandemic to last more than 18 months. Even the bubonic plague, the outbreaks in the Middle Ages, it's the virus literally wants it, even a deadly virus. What happens is that the pathogen travels and it degenerates each time. So like when they were like Omicron and all these variants, what they don't tell you is the news just straight up lied because the news is an arm of the pharmaceutical company, because who can pay for fucking advertising on the news anymore when barely any people watch it? It's pharmaceutical drugs. So they literally by proxy own it.
Yeah.
Right? They own the media.
One of the reasons why that Pfizer guy hasn't even been on any of the networks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like they get busted. Oh, they're doing gain-of-function research in Pfizer, which is illegal. And like, this is the thing, too. This isn't even a partisan issue. Like, Obama passed a moratorium on gain-of-function research in the United States, period.
Explain that to some of the viewers.
So basically in 2015, Obama passed a law that you were not allowed to do gain-of-function research on deadly viruses within the borders of the United States of America, which means gain-of-function. You can't, I'm going through puberty. I've been screaming in a microphone for like 3 weeks straight.
Screaming
My
at me
voice
too.
is just because I'm recording again. But anyway, gain of function, for the people who don't understand what that means, it's when you manipulate the organism to get more functions out of it, either to make it a more deadly pathogen or make it more transmittable or to make it whatever you're doing to it. And so Project Veritas busted this clown on a date. They keep getting these guys, bro. Like, how do you keep falling for this thing? Like, and he was just like, yeah, we're doing it so that we could get ready for the next vaccine. I'm like, no, you're not. I'm like, you're making the virus worse so you can go do your cash grab again. And you're completely unregulated, right? And it's like, at this point, who's in charge? And this is what they're doing. And people just, people just kind of, everyone's so into the conveyor belt of false information that nobody even knows what to know is real anymore. Yeah.
And then there's so much, and obviously, you can follow, you can be like, no, Fox only, CNN only, but they're all
owned by the same people.
But if I was going to watch a fucking channel, it would be Fox. But it's still everybody is benefiting from something.
It's an allowance, right? Like Rupert Murdoch is one of the owners of Fox. He also has the Washington Post. These guys don't give a about anything but money. They'll have two publications with completely contradicting things because they want to make money off both sets of readers. That's all they're doing. There is no, the news is not supposed to tell you what to think, right? Back in the day, you think Ted Koppel and Barbara Walters, they told you the story and you decided for yourself, right? Only communist countries have propaganda news networks. Welcome to America. We have switched to communism.
Well, not yet, but it's early stages of I know. I have to keep my own back from cancel culture.
No.
But that's another thing too. Cancel culture is fucking rampant, and you've had obviously a little sprinkle of that. A little sprinkle of that.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, cancel culture. I was doing a little dig on this. It goes right back to ancient Greek times.
Okay.
And I can't remember what the Greek. What would he be like? The Greek over Greece, the emperor, right?
The emperor.
Oh my God, he's gonna come to me. It sounds like Khaleesi, but it sounds very similar. Cancel culture is basically banishment. So what they would do is they would take it to a voting panel, and they'd have 6,000 slabs, and people would vote for banishment. And banishment meant 10 years away from ancient Greece. But what they were finding was people coming back after 10 years and being embraced. So cancel culture now is you can get banished or punished or told off and everything else, but you still are put in that box no matter how many times you say sorry. Like Kevin Hart, for example, he went through all that, he apologized, he's moved on with his career, he's evolved. But it's just like the cancel culture I know started with the Me Too movement.
Sure.
And 2018 was when cancel culture first came up as a trending hashtag, and now it's gone and evolved into what it is right now. And obviously, you had a little sprinkle of cancel culture.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just like everything. It's like, Black Lives Matter started out as a fucking good thing, right? You're like, yes, Black Lives Matter. Okay, yes. What is this about? Well, there are certain places where the police are not acting accordingly. Now, I'm someone who backs the blue. I have family who are law enforcement. Now, there are case-by-case situations.
Yeah, just like this past weekend.
Yeah, but what they do is the news makes a lot of money making people crazy about it, and now it's also been politicized. So, like, my beginning introduction to cancel culture started with the criticizing of the George Floyd riots. Right, facts that people don't know about the George Floyd riots. 1, 17 women were raped and severely beaten during the George Floyd riots in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Unreported on. Just didn't know,
All black.
Yeah. How many people were like assaulted, or like the police officer who was killed during the Chicago versions of the riots, right? A retired police officer was shot dead, killed, like a 60-year-old man. also black, but they don't care. You know what I mean?
Doesn't fit the narrative, right?
Well, yeah, you have like on 4th of July weekend in 2020, there were 7 black babies who were murdered in gang gun violence. And I wrote a song about this. It inspired me to write a song. Black Lives Matter silent, right? Terry Crews went on CNN and Don Lemon abused him for bringing this issue up, for saying, where's Black Lives Matter? Why are we not talking about the problems in our own community and our own culture where black on black gun violence is responsible for the murder of innocent children? This is something we should be outraged about. This is more of an area where we need reform. So when I started digging into BLM, I found out that it was incorporated. It wasn't a 501c3. I used to have a nonprofit organization. Well, 501c3, for those who don't know, is a nonprofit organization where you do charity work and the people who donate to you get tax write-offs because the donations are going to the cause. Yep. A healthy charity is 80-20, where 80% goes to the cause and 20% goes to administration. You have unhealthy things like the Red Cross, which has an atrocious rating of reverse. 20% goes to the cause and 80% goes into the administration's pockets. There's a lot of that, and a lot of rich people, very wealthy people, start 501c3s as tax evasion, and then them and their friends put their own money into the 501c3. So that's a whole other corrupt game that we could talk more about. Now, BLM didn't even bother to do this. They just owned and trademarked Black Lives Matter, and the donations went to Act Blue. Act Blue was a Democratic panel of politicians who raised funds for Joe Biden's campaign. So there was no black people on the panel. So it was like George Soros, Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, the list goes on and on. And those were the benefactors. So when Nike was sending them $3 million, or all these companies were sending millions of dollars to blacklivesmatter.com, they were sending it to the Democrats. And that was another money laundering scheme. So I did a marker video and I exposed this in like June of 2020. It got 37 million views in like 2 or 3 days. And then it got wiped from the internet. And that was my first time like, yo, something's going on.
You're on the radar.
Well, then I started getting death threats, and like, again, I'm not the one, like, I'm not some guy on the internet, like, I'm strapped. People are like, I'm going to kill you. I'm like, I live here. I would love to catch a stateside kill. I would. I have bro, that's my morality behind it. I'm like, look, I've already been in these situations. Yeah. If it's your first time committing murder, I wish you luck. Because I'm not the one. It's just a race to see who goes back to God's kingdom first. If you show up on my doorstep, I'm like, it ain't gonna be me. I was like, I'll see you in a few years, buddy.
Yeah, you don't need that white light coming in.
Like what happened? It's like, fuck. It's like, I'm not the one, bro.
Wild West, fucking draw last.
Yeah. But that's the thing. It's like, it's not a tough guy thing. It's just, we have a right in this country to protect our own lives. So, Kyle Rittenhouse, shout out. American hero. But anyway, so I started dealing with all this. Then came the music industry. So the media was like, and this is the thing, bro, I'm media trained. At that point in my career, I was doing 100 interviews a year. So, and I know these people. They're goons. Like, all these guys in the music industry, they all go to liberal arts schools before they get their internship and get paid $40,000 a year to act like they're hot shit. They don't have, they're not doing anything. And and they're super opinionated and blah, 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 but they all have the same opinion and none of them think outside and none of them can psychologically deviate from the curriculum. And, they were like, Tommy Vext says, and what I did was I was like, in the video at the end, I was like, this racism is manufactured, right? Not racism in general, but what they're doing is a manufactured form of racism because they can monetize it. And the headlines were, Tommy Vext says racism is manufactured, and it was everywhere. But this was good because what happened is then World Star and The Source and all the hip-hop magazines picked up the video.
Oh, they did, huh?
Oh, yeah. And everyone tried to ridicule me. But what I did was 37 million people looked up Act Blue and realized that BLM was a complete scam. And I deflated all the people and that's why the internet is so censored now. Damn. Because not just because of me, but in general, people who are putting things together and explaining it. Mm-hmm. And if you inform and educate the public, you can't scam them, right? It's like a card game, right? When we were kids in Coney Island, there'd be a guy and he'd put a piece of dice under cups and do this, and I'm like, yo, there's a hole under the table, and he'd be like, get the fuck out of here, kid.
You kid.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, and I go to the next one, and there'd be like a guy doing this, that, the other, and I'm like, it's a double-sided die, and he's like, who is this kid? Like I was like my cousin Vinny, he's like, yo, he's doing this. It's like the card's up his sleeve. But out of here. And so they
guy again,
but they can't scam. If information keeps circulating in the public, they lose their funding. Yeah. So think about how many people saw that video and didn't put, and it's not, I don't give a fuck if Rosie O'Donnell gives $1 million away. Fuck her. I don't care if she loses money. I care about fucking somebody who sees this shit and is like, makes $30,000 a year and gives $1,000 of their money to this fucking bullshit. Yeah. You know what I mean? For a guy who the president has a history of associating with white supremacists like Robert Byrd, who was in the KKK. He spoke at his funeral and hung out with him all the time, who said publicly and then gone and said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. Right?
Yep.
Right before the Floyd thing happened. Weird timing on that. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I said these things, right? And I said these things as an American. I happen to be an African American. And I happen to be the fucking highest grossing, highest selling rock star that is African American in the last 20 years. I think since fucking Lenny Kravitz or something.
Great job, bro.
And I'm like, but I'm just saying, and what happened was every fucking white liberal person was like, you're a disgrace to your race. And I'm like, bro, you're racist. These people are crazy because they don't, I'm like, you don't even know any black people. You don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. You don't live in the hood. You went to college, bro. You went to a nice white college and they taught you all this shit. Bro, go get a job in the fucking hood. Go work at the bodega. Go hang at the barbershop. Go do some shit. Go live in there. Oh, they would go work in there. But that's what I'm saying. I'm like, you don't know anything about culture, about ethnic culture, if you're not submersed in it or immerse yourself in it. And you're sitting here trying to tell me what my experience is because you don't like that it doesn't align with what your white college professor, who is a socialist, has indoctrinated you to believe. And all your stupid little corny ass friends with your soft baby hands who have never pushed a plow or dug a ditch or done construction or curled your little noodly hands up and punched a bully.
But they hustle every day.
Yeah.
What that means now.
It's not even, I don't even know what these fucking dudes are. It's just what the internet has let the most weakest pussified beta, they're not even beta, it's below B. It's whatever cuckold fucking pussies. It's given them a platform to say and do whatever the they want. Whereas bro, there are people who have disrespected me on social media that I've run into on the street at a show, and they are like, oh, Mr. Vext, I'm sorry. Oh, you're a lot bigger than you look on the on the YouTube. And can I just? My wife loves you. Can we take a picture? I'm like, yo, isn't your name Maggot 613 on? Hot, on Instagram? He's like, yeah. I'm like, did you tell me to go myself? Yeah. He's like, it wasn't me.
It's pressure.
It's like, yeah. It's like, oh well, I was just having a bad day and I didn't take my meds. I'm like, hey, okay, take the picture. Come on, I pick him up like a baby,
yeah.
But it's so crazy. The internet has gone so crazy, and so they that was the beginning. It got worse and worse and worse.
So, would you say with everything that's been going on, does all that shape your music, or does music shape, what I mean?
No, I mean, look, I've been talking about this shit for 20 years. And it's not, people was fucking surprised, right? The ultimate cancel, I wore a fucking MAGA hat.
Yeah.
So Trump came to Orange County. I left LA and I rented a beach house in Orange County from my friend. right? And it was supposed to be her Airbnb property, but there was no renters. And I was like sick of LA, and I talked to Tito Ortiz, and he was like, bro, we opened UFC gym in the parking lot, calm down. And I was losing my mind.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I went through a breakup that year. I was like, I'm just gonna go to Orange County. I had this crazy chick who like she called the police and said that I tried to kill myself. Sent the cops to my apartment. I was like, I'm fucking out of it. I'm done with LA. Yeah, and that even gets more dicey. So I go to Orange County. She met Trump. He gave her a fucking hat, and she gave it to me. And I fucking wore it and took a picture on Instagram. Yeah. And it got like 100,000 likes. And it was the biggest fucking story of the year.
Shut up.
I was the most covered rock star on the planet in 2020 because I was outspoken.
Yeah.
And people were like, Tommy Vext. And what I said was, I was like, after reviewing all the evidence in a very detailed manner, I'm going to be voting for Trump. And most people, I know I'm going to lose followers. Some people are going to criticize me, but it's like at the end of Terminator, when she's talking about the Terminator being the only insane choice to take care of her son. Mm-hmm. In an insane world, he was the sanest choice. And I'm like, the world is insane, and this is the best we got. And the decision was made behind closed doors that now he's got to go. So then things started to materialize. Like the girlfriend, the crazy chick all of a sudden is like filing domestic violence charges against me, and the record label's calling and saying, we need you to sign a contract saying you're going to forfeit your First Amendment rights of freedom of speech and sign me into a conservatorship like fucking Britney Spears. No way. And my business partner was on the call, and he was okay with this, and so was my lawyer.
So who pioneered this? Your ex-girlfriend started.
No, so
whatever. I don't want to get into any fucking these for you.
No. I mean, I went to court. First she tried to get me arrested and said that I beat her and tried to kill her, and there was no evidence of domestic violence. And in criminal court, it was dropped. And then she got, then she filed for a restraining order. Meanwhile, I'm like, it's like the narcissistic delusion. Like, I don't want anything to do with this woman. She was fucking A-Rod behind my back, right? For money. Yeah. And I'm like, you don't need money. I'm like, I pay for our apartment. I had my own apartment. I was like, you go on first class trips all over the world. I play, we just got back from Europe in an arena.
Yeah.
And I was like,
she's a sex worker?
Yeah, but undercover. She's got problems, bro. She got molested by a family member and didn't do the work, and if you don't do the work, it manifests itself. Yeah. And my dumb ass was still in a phase where I was like, I'll fix this, right? And we had been friends for 4 or 5 years. I'd seen her go through, breakup after breakup, and then we finally wound up linking up and whatever. She's a very attractive woman, but she's just like a fucking tapestry of scars, bro. It's just like she's one of them Humpty Dumpty bitches. Like all the king's horses and all the king's men will not fix this bitch together again. And so she beat the shit out of me for the 4th time, and I finally was like, I'm out.
Yeah.
And then my penalty for leaving was all the stuff that ensued. And so it was like, her brother is white trash, and he went to prison for trying to kill his wife, and fucking she copied and pasted the assault the assault papers of his court case and put them into her allegations of mine. Yeah. That got brought up in court. I mean, bro, she got clowned.
Wow.
She got absolutely clowned. And I'm, again, I just weighed myself. I'm 270, right?
Yeah.
And she's saying I tried to beat her and punched her and kicked her and threw her down the stairs and choked her till she was dead and dragged her by her hair and threatened to throw her off a balcony, which is my friend had gotten murdered recently by being thrown off a balcony. So it was just anything she could fucking put in there. And so, at the end of the court case, the judge ruled that there was no evidence of domestic violence, and he gave her a 2-year restraining order so that I wouldn't post on social media that she was an escort.
Oh.
And what happened was her employee, she's a fitness person, she's like an Instagram fitness model, and her employee quit working for her because of what she was doing to me, and came and testified against her.
Oh, wow.
But also submitted all the evidence of her prostitution. She had a prostitution website where she had a verified account on a prostitute website.
And you had no clue.
No. And this came out after we were already going to court. So it just confirmed everything that I had seen on the laptop and everything else. So that was to protect her public, whatever. So because I had voted for Trump, this stuff comes out after. The media is just like, Tommy Vext gets restraining order. And I'm like, you didn't post any of the fucking facts, right? Like, you could spit at me and I could be like, Flex Lewis spit at me and I want a restraining order, and they'll just give me one. It's like ordering it's like ordering it's like nothing. Yeah. And that's the problem with the system. She knew, first of all, her lawyers tried to get, they asked me if I would, for $100,000 to go away. Oh yeah. Yeah, but right before we went to court, they called my lawyers and they were like, if you give us $100,000, we'll drop everything.
No one knew you like that. I'd rather spend that money on lawyers.
Yeah, and I did. You know? And so in the end, she got a 2-year restraining order. And now there's nothing. I could say whatever I want. Yeah. Like, they were just like, you can't say anything about her in podcasts. And I don't really want to bring up, I don't feel the need to bring up her name until, well, I'm going into court. I filed an appeal. So I'm fighting the whole fucking thing. And this is the problem, is like, this Me Too thing, a lot of these fucking lawyers think they're going to get a quick payday because during the Me Too era, 90% of the guys who got falsely accused just cut checks to not have to deal with the career damage. So all these women were making fucking millions of dollars on their shit. So, you know, this guy Provenziano, her attorney, like, this is what he specializes in, is blackmailing dudes with legally blackmail. And so, you know, and then to this day, this woman still fucking runs an Instagram hate page about me called Surviving Tommy Vext.
Shut up.
And we had somebody jailbreak the account, and it goes to her fucking, what's her name? The girl who works for her. It's the cell phone number.
But if people didn't know now, they could find that information.
Yeah,
technically, they haven't said anything.
Yeah, but I mean, it is what it is, bro. And this girl's been in a relationship with some dude for like 2 years, like right after, and has been literally every tweet I do, everything, just constantly talking about me. She called up every girl, like this girl is a ninja. She found every chick I would be seen with on social media, and would call them and like, and breathe into the phone.
What,
bro? She went as far as to. So I was dating this girl in Orange County, and her best friend was a hairstylist. They found the best friend, her and her like other hooker girlfriend, booked hair appointments, then proceeded to attempt to convince the best friend that I had murdered a baby. Yeah.
What the hell?
Bro,
like, how fucking sadistic are you?
But this is what people with these disorders, their reality, you don't even know. It's so crazy that you don't even know if it's real. And then the whole time we were together, like, you know, I knew this person for 4 years, and I was like, oh, this is my real friend. Like, she knew me before I was famous. Like, her and her ex came to my shows, and like, they broke up because he beat her up, and I stopped talking to him. And that's a huge mistake. I should have talked to him. I stopped being his friend. But what she was doing was what narcissistic women do, is they start to isolate you from their other victims, and then they start to make the rounds.
Even guys will fall out and they'll create a firewall. So then you don't go to that guy to, you know what I mean? It's a narcissistic trait.
Yeah, and it's like, you should always do further investigation, because if I would have looked into it, you know, and then I found out the guy before him was a rapper. She ruined his career. Jesus. She accused him of rape.
Wow, that's no joke.
And then she didn't file criminal charges for rape. She just got a restraining order because he paid the money.
Is she medicated?
No. Well, when we were together, I put her in therapy, and they were talking about putting her on medication. But you know, she's somebody who she uses steroids, and she probably shouldn't.
She's in the industry.
Yeah, she shouldn't be taking the drugs that she takes, because it makes and like, you know, you don't really know who you're gonna get.
Yeah.
You know, she has like, and this is the thing. I don't hate her. I'm not mad. It was a very valuable lesson. You know what I mean? And there's nothing like. It taught me that I'm invincible. It taught me that you don't really know who someone is until you know who they are. Yeah. You know, and that I'm a fight. Like under any circumstance, I won't be bulldozed down. Yeah. I'm not going to be extorted. I'm not going to be threatened. And it caused me millions of dollars in damages, but I'll make it back. Yeah. You know,
I've seen your career now as of recent, just in abundance, a lot of incredible opportunities that are starting to come in.
Yeah.
I mean, since you've been at this gym, and you know, obviously I get to see you now.
Yeah.
A couple of times a week, and it seems like you're being blessed. Every time we speak, you have something new you want to tell me. Something new. We've got. Yeah. You're working on the album. You've got, as you mentioned earlier, you're aligning a star band performance that's going to go out in 2 weeks' time, and all these blessings are coming upon you, and you've stayed true to your morals. And don't get me wrong, like, listen, you've lived hell of a life. Your path from where you've come from, and your social upbringing, as you know, created, you know, the being that I sit in front of you that I call my friend, that has, you know, probably scars that are suppressed and all kinds of things you've seen and dealt with. But one thing I will say about you, mate, and I'm always very impressed. You're so great to your fans. You are always in an incredible mood. You could talk to any person that walks in here, or you know, about any different subject. I think one subject I want to talk about before, you know, we kind of start wrapping everything up. Is I'm so impressed with your intellect, so impressed with your world knowledge about a variety of different subjects. Like, we could talk about so many things, and we have. Yeah. And I found myself in my office going down so many different routes, and then you leave, and I go, this guy is just a unicorn, such a interesting guy, because you've traveled around the world. I've traveled around the world. We've got a lot of different cultures that we've become, you know, that we've invested ourselves into, experience cultures. I know you said you just come from Sweden. I'm sure you embedded yourself and got into the nuts and bolts of Sweden, as I've done in every time I've gone to various different countries. And I think you know, just analyzing everything, you've taken the best of every person you've met on your journey, the worst of things, and you've created this narrative and this storyline of who you are, what you've gone through, and know what you could be going to be coming in the next chapters of Tommy Vext. So
I appreciate it. I'm a pretty what's the word, like I don't know. I'm like a self-deprecating guy. Like, I don't really, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think of myself as like I have that same thing. Like, I have terminal not enoughness. So I appreciate it. It's like I'm getting better at taking compliments, but I want to. They haven't put the fire out inside of me.
Yeah.
So they can like lie about me, try to brand me. You know, I mean, dude, cancel culture. It's civil crucifixion, right? It's like what the Jews did to Jesus by way of the Romans, right? They couldn't actually do it, so they got somebody else to do the dirty work for them, and it's been around forever. And the thing is that, you know, it's like Kid Rock talks about. He's like, go where you're celebrated, not tolerated. And every time a person says, "Oh man, I'm like, yeah, like, yeah, it's happening here." Like, you know, like a couple of the guys, they're, you know, like, "Hey man, like, dude, my wife loves you," or like, "My kids love your song," and I'm like, yeah, like, you know, I'm like, sick. I'm glad somebody loves me, because this is a thing for me, bro. Like, my mother abandoned me, and in my childhood, I don't care what anybody says, every orphan kid, whether they get adopted or not, there's this thing of, why wasn't I enough? And every person who's touched by my music or by something I've said or something I wrote, it's like sands on a barge. They're like microscopic puzzle pieces fixing the hole, and the hole's almost gone. It's not really there anymore, right? It's more filled in than there's a lack of. And I'm everyone's son. I'm everyone's brother. I'm everyone's friend. And that's how that's how I live now. I belong to everybody. That's why I'm so I've always been so transparent with the music, with the stuff I talk about. Because and my mother said this, who raised me, when I put the song out about what happened with me and my brother, I took my mom and my sister to dinner in New York, and I was like, hey, and Wayne Isham directed the music video, and he's done Metallica and Michael Jackson. He's like one of the best music video directors of the world. And I was like, hey, so I wrote this song, and I know it's uncomfortable, and it's talking about our family, and my sister didn't want to be involved. That's why she's not in the video. There's no mention of my sister being in it. And my mother looked at me and she said, if you help at least one family by telling our story, then all this shit that we went through would be worth it.
Damn.
Just 50, 60 million views later. And that's what it is. When we share our pain, we divide it. But when we share our joy, it multiplies.
Yeah.
Right? It's like every time I see you, you're with someone and you're like, they're like, they're like, everyone's amped to see you, but you have this thing of you reverse the polarity and you literally push their positive energy back on them and they walk away a little taller. And that's something that I observe and I'm like, I need to learn that. You know what I mean? Like I'm like bring people into the,
Can you make me look taller then in that process? If you do it to me?
Yeah, but
people walk away a little taller. I need the fucking height, bro.
Yeah, but it doesn't. You can't measure a spiritual giant in inches.
You know look at this guy. See, you're good at it, bro. You're good at it.
So it's a go where the love is.
On that word right there, can you truly now say with everything you've gone through that you've accepted everything and you can love yourself? Are you at that stage in life?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'll ever be done. I think the work, I'm always going to have work to do, right? Like I'm in the process of accepting love again in my life. Because I was so injured, I shut it down, I shut everybody out, and I kept everybody here because I got betrayed. But my band members in Bad Wolves, bro, me and Doc rolled 20 years deep. Bro, I've stepped in front of fights for that guy, where he was going to get his ass kicked. I've, taught him how to dress. I gave him a job. He was living in Hollywood on a mattress. And I took him in and I gave him a $70,000 a year job. I put him in the band. He didn't play on the records. He doesn't do anything. John was a fucking Uber driver. I came into the situation I was singing for Five Finger Death Punch. I was already signed. I was on the payroll. And I walked away from a $300,000 a year job to be a fucking rock star. You know what I mean? In the first year we made $37,000. And so it's all that stuff, all the betrayal trauma, I don't have the power to fucking let go, but I have the power to let God. And so a year ago, I actually started going back to church. Ryan Stewman, our buddy.
Shout out Hardcore Closer.
Yeah. And David Harris Jr. brought me to church in Frisco, Texas, to New Life Church. And I met Pastor Keith. We actually had dinner the night before and I met Steve Weatherford. And these guys got around me and they started praying for me. And I felt, and this is why men need each other, right? The kind of structural support and spiritual love that men tribally bring to the table, this is part of our culture as human beings. It breaks you down and rebuilds you. And I began praying for everybody who betrayed me every day, relentlessly, as if my life depended on it. Right?
Was that hard?
Yeah. I didn't want to do it. The same way I prayed for, when I was please God, let me stay sober, And then I remember I prayed for months and months and months and months. And then one day I just was I'm not angry anymore. And I had an offer to go sing on this record and I flew to LA. And I get on the plane and I was in Nashville. I get on the plane. I get a FaceTime and it's Chris from Bad Wolves. He's like, bro, I'm sorry. I was like, I'm sorry too, man. I'm like, I'm getting on a plane to LA. I'm like, you want to meet me in my hotel in a couple hours? He's like, yeah.
Wow.
And we're boys again. And we talked about everything that happened. He told me everything from behind the fucking scam of what was done and everything. I know everything that happened. And I get it. I'm like, all right. You know what I mean? And the thing is, like, that's God. That is, again, God working for me in places where God constantly does for me what I can't do for myself, because, we're not forgiving other people for them. We're forgiving other people for all of us. Like, it helps me, it benefits me to forgive those who trespass against us as we forgive those, you know what I mean? It's like, it's at the same time as we're asking, because I trespass. I have a part. I play a role in these things. I'm not a victim. My personality type, or like the way that I am, sometimes people feel like I'm snatching too much attention or I'm doing too much. And that upsets people who don't know how to be forthright, who don't have a spiritual experience, who don't have God's voice in their head being like, go now, do it. This is it. And so that scares people. And I have to understand that, but I can't understand that if I don't listen or I don't forgive. So, what I love about me is that I'm willing to keep learning and I'm willing to listen. And I think there's a lot of work. We have a lot of work, like society right now, culturally, we have a lot of fucking work to do to fix the mess that these corporations have done dividing people. And I think if me and Chris can forgive each other, and I can forgive my ex or forgive the record label or whatever and let these people go, everybody can forgive each other about voting for different presidents. It's time, bro. Yeah. It's time. The anti-vaxxers and the vaccinated can let each other go. Stop holding each other hostage, emotional hostage, because all you're doing is poisoning yourself. And the more that we're in this poison situation, all of us are lowering our vibration, and we're further away from God spiritually the lower we go. And I don't want to see that anymore, bro. I want to see fucking mankind like lifted again, because we are incredible creatures. People are like, man, they have this whole, oh man, we're destroying the planet. I'm like, hold on. The corporations who are fucking poisoning and polluting the oceans and destroying the planet are paying millions of dollars to advertise to blame it on you. They could do it a different way. The plastic ocean, the plastic garbage in the ocean is from China. They're completely unregulated by the rest of the world because people are too afraid, because they make our stuff. There's too much greed and too much bullshit. And so all this stuff, like, the truth, you will know when people are telling the truth by things getting better. People in power continuously lie. They will tell you whatever the and as long as things don't get better, they're full of shit, and that they're bettering themselves. But when things start to get better and you can actually see them get better, you'll know who's doing a good job.
And then what is your role? What is your role you see for the future for yourself outside of music? Is it anything, or is it something you're passionate about that you want to get into outside of music, or is music your next and full focus? Because you're very
I don't know.
You're very drawn, I feel, into politics.
Yeah, but somebody like me wouldn't do well in politics, because I'm a solution-based person, and I'm like Trump, right? Like I'm like Trump in the way that I'm unapologetic about being honest, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, right? Like, people try to fact check me, like, I'm like, oh, cool, thank you.
I did say that,
right? Everyone is so afraid to be wrong that they don't say anything, and that's another part of like socialists' social conditioning. Remove opinion from people. Make people. You have to have humility. If I make a mistake, when I was getting sober, this guy Joe would be like, he was super neurotic, and he's been sober a long time. And he was like, when I wake up in the morning, I give myself 3 mistakes, and then if I make more than 3 mistakes, I start counting over it.
Jesus. Have you got accountabilities like that?
Do I have what?
Day-to-day accountability?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I definitely tell people to do is put your cell phone under your bed.
What was it again?
Put your cell phone under your bed.
Put your cell phone under your bed.
Yeah, before you go to sleep. Because when you wake up in the morning, most people go and grab a device and check their emails or whatever. If you have to get on your knees to go under the bed to get it, you've already put yourself in the surrender position. And why not say a prayer or listen? Yeah. You know what I mean? Or take a moment and direct your day. You know? You could just be like, every day you could wake up and before you get your phone, be like, today's going to be the fucking best day of my life. And if you do it enough, like you'll just start believing it. Like that's the thing about repetition, right? It's like this spiritual muscle memory. Yeah. If you keep doing it consistently, it grows.
Oh, no question. I'm on one myself right now.
Are you?
Yeah, I've changed my whole mentality to a certain sector in my life, and the abundance I've had out of just waking up 4 hours earlier than what I normally would. Yeah, 3 hours earlier. Regardless of what sleep I have at night, I might be up 3-4 times with the baby. I've had 2 hours sleep, 3 hours sleep. My alarm goes off at 4, and I get up.
And then you're just up.
The time I get to this office, which is at 8 o'clock, I'm already 4 hours ahead of myself. 4 fucking hours I've gained on my old self. And I come in here and I'm like, okay. And then I can see truly what else is going on as opposed to being hunkered in the chair, working on this piece of plastic and telling myself that I have to do stuff out there. I have to do stuff in here. Now I come in here and I'm like a general.
Yeah, you're ahead of everybody. Everyone else is rolling in and you're like, yo, I'm already there.
And I used to hear about the 4 a.m. wake-ups. You know, DJ's a good friend, The Rock's a good friend of mine. Used to get up before regardless. I was with Wes Watson.
Yeah, Wes is
he's a madman. I really gravitate to him.
He's the money guy.
He's wild. Yeah. He had 2 phones. I'm getting him on the podcast too. Definitely. He's coming in.
Let me know when he's here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So
we followed each other on social media forever before my account was deleted.
Yeah.
And then I went to San Diego during COVID. I was dating this chick down there, and all I heard was, "Yo, was that Big Vext?" And I'm like, bro,
it is nice too.
Yeah, and I'm 270. I'm 6'1". Yeah. I'm not little by any stretch, and I'm like, damn. I hope I didn't do something. I'm like, is that your? I'm looking at this girl, and I'm like, you better not be married, bro. I'm not trying to die here.
Did have his top off?
No. He had just come out of his car, and I was like, oh shit. I'm like, is that Wes? He's like, yo, what's up, baby? I was like,
he's great.
I was going to snooze. I was just like, I thought I was about to die, bro.
Bro, he wakes up at 2 a.m. every morning.
Yeah, he's wild, bro.
He has him and I got into a deep conversation. I kind of sparked it a little bit. Him and Ed Milet. Ed Milet hit my heart hard 2 weeks ago.
I wish I would have went. Yeah,
I done that speaking engagement up in Salt Lake, and he was the main speaker, along with Bradley, who you just done the podcast with, along with Ryan. Also, just star-studded fucking setup.
It's so amazing to, like, for me, right? I'm just like a dude in a band, and I like entrepreneurs, bodybuilders, athletes. These are the people I look up to.
Yeah,
and I get to hang out with all you guys.
It's the same for you, though. But then everybody's kind of interlinked, and we all have a common mentality.
Yeah.
To be the best, and also get the best out of our friends. Because for me, there's nothing more than I love than encouraging my friends, picking up the phone and saying, "Bro, I'm so fucking proud of you." I love. I don't know how many times you've heard it from my mouth, but now you're going to be like, he hasn't said it to me. So enough. But yeah, there's for me, it's nothing better than seeing my friends kill it and also just stay humble. Right, stay humble, stay driven, and bring the people up who believed in them when they really didn't believe in themselves. In many cases too, up with them. So,
which we've all gone through.
Yeah, but like with these guys now, when they're eating their friends are eating, or the people, they're not bringing up people just for necessity. They're bringing up because these people at some capacity changed their life or kept them sober, kept them in the zone, kept them, not going astray.
Yeah.
And now, it's gone full circle where we have so many mutual friends who have so many different stories. But the common thing is, among many common things, but we all want to see each other succeed, And as I was saying to you a couple of days ago, it was you and Jelly Roll that all of a sudden were just, I was hit to the tidal wave of Tommy Vext. It was coming from my friends. It was coming from fans. It was coming off my social media. I don't know what this chain event happened, but I think it was a combination of music, a combination of your beliefs. It was everything that came together, and then all our mutual friends stood next to you and made sure that you knew that your platform was supported. You had a fucking stage to sing at and talk about your beliefs in FitCon.
Yeah.
And then that's how you and I met, first of all. And we hit it off, and obviously, it's gone to the point from connection on social media now to seeing each other and seeing each other and supporting one another on the daily. So, mate, I'm fucking proud to have you opposite me on my podcast.
Bro, it's an honor. I'm excited to be. Listen, man, the fact that anybody ever wants to talk to me is a blessing.
I fucking love
you know
it.
what I mean? And yeah, dude, it's fucking love Jelly Roll too. Just shout out to Jelly.
Man.
I mean, dude, it's just, I love that too. I watched Jelly, right? Like, I did a song with him in 2020 when I was hot shit. Fucking 5 #1 singles, every radio station, 10 times a day. I mean, dude, it's like I'm still on every radio station, every rock radio station on the planet every single day. It's just that they deleted my social media. They don't want me connected to the fans because I amassed such a massive fan base, so that they, now I'm like on my 3rd Instagram. Just follow me on there, and we'll put the little
we'll pop that up. We'll pop that up.
And it's like same thing. I had to start. It's like I watched Jelly go from. I mean, bro, Jelly literally just eclipsed me. Like, he's bigger than I was at the height, than Bad Wolves was at the height. And now he's like taking his storytelling and what he's about. And Bunny too. Bunny just got the #1 podcast last month on Apple. Yeah, dude, she beat Joe Rogan.
I have to fucking hit it up and tell her that.
And I was on.
Shout out to Bunny.
Yeah, I was on her show a year or two ago.
Really?
Yeah. They're fucking awesome, bro. And it's like you see people and you want you feel like fuck, I want these people to win, and then they do.
Yeah.
And they've been super supportive through all the shit that fucking happened to me. Same thing with Struggle Jennings. So they'll be out on tour together. It's just like all the good people. I remember in 2020, everyone's like, the Great Awakening. I'm like, the Great Awakening is a spiritual awakening. The Great Awakening is everyone realizing who's on what side. And here we all are. And it brought everybody together. As bad as COVID was, and as bad as the fucking scamming and the money laundering and the government corruption globally and all this shit, everybody got real close to the real, like all the real ones really got.
I agree.
We all got close.
I got the out of Florida, came here, and my fucking life opened up in abundance. I got away from a lot of people I thought were there, and they weren't.
Yeah.
Once I stopped becoming the cash cow, or I started, saying, no, then I was like, I realized then soon enough. But is there anything you want to promote, talk about before we kind of jump off here? Because I think we are. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, so I make music.
Yeah.
So I'm on Spotify, I'm on Apple Music. I just had the #1 album on Christmas Eve on Apple in America. I was #1 in US, Sweden, 5 in Italy, 20 in UK, 22 in Australia. No help. We're completely no media, no support. So you can find me at Tommy Vext on all that, Pandora. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube. It's just Tommy Vext Official. I got like 20 music videos out. I mean, bro, I've been busy. I put 3 albums out in 2022. And I'm gonna put another 2 albums out this year, minimum. So, and I'm also talking to a country singer. I might do a country duet record with this young lady that I really am a fan of her voice. So
Very interesting.
yeah, just staying busy.
A lot of cool things coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, just God doing God things.
Maybe some conversations that we've had in my office that we might.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So we're gonna do some. We're gonna break the internet.
Yeah, we'll bring you back on for part 2.
All right.
How about that?
We'll come around when everything's set up.
Yeah. Listen, bro, it's a fucking pleasure. I truly love seeing you at the gym.
I love being here.
I'd be a little sad when you're on the road, you know, because you've got a great energy.
You don't let me pay for anything. I try to buy. You know what I mean? I've got how many? I come in here when Flex isn't here, and I buy stuff from the store. Well, but this is the thing too. I'm gonna be honest with you. The clothes are fucking top tier. Yeah, but it's like everything else. It's very hard if you lift weights. Like I wear First Form stuff and I wear Culture stuff.
Shout out Andy.
Because yeah, forever.
Andy's a fucking man.
And he's the OG. Like he's like Andy Stradamus. he's been calling it out for forever.
Yeah.
And but yeah, so it's like I fucking support the things that I like, and
you do.
Yeah, and I'm with it, man. So it's
well, on that,
yeah.
You have paid for a lot of things. I just want to say that this man been very blessed in life. You know, you've got a nice bank account. You're not one of these guys.
It's not that good,
but
not yet.
Listen, it's going to be, but I'm saying you've done very well in life. And
I'm a lot well living.
But you've not adopted that mentality that I'm a star, I deserve to have this. You know, you don't have that. And listen, bro, I have a lot of friends, and you do too, that have this expectation. They could say they're humble, but then when it comes to stuff, they're like, hey, I'm going to grab some of this. I've seen you walking around, rocking my stuff, and I was like, Tommy, you didn't pay for that. He was like, bro, I support my friends.
Yeah.
And I'm like, come on, bro, listen. You got to learn to take and accept gifts too. I'm supporting my friend too.
It's 50-50.
So today he got his credit card out. He's about to buy something. And he got that in time. I got that in time.
He swiped it.
I swiped it
before I could swipe.
You know, yeah. You have supported me, and you're obviously my wife loves you.
Yeah.
You're a you
guys are awesome.
She says
man.
you're a unicorn.
Well, you guys are goals, man. It's like, you know, it's proof, right? That's the dream. Like behind every good man is a great woman, and so it's like,
no question.
Yeah, and it's you see it, right?
Yeah,
and you're like, I'm like, yeah,
appreciate
I love it. You know,
yeah.
It's like you don't want to be single out here. It's fucking terrible.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know where to fucking do.
No, it's a nightmare, bro.
But on that note, we're not fucking opening that kind of rooms.
No. Anyway,
Tommy Vext, you are the fucking man,
bro.
I appreciate you and all you do for the fans, how you've stayed steadfast in your beliefs, your morals, and all the shit you've gone through, which in majority of stuff now is coming down the pipeline that, oh, guess what? He was actually telling the truth. So, my man, more and more people are going to see this podcast, and I hope that there's new fans for you and all the fans that have supported you through thick and thin.
Yeah, thank you,
any
guys.
Parting words for the fans that have done that?
Just, I don't know what I normally tell people when I get off stage. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other, right? That's it. That's all we got.
No better words to end on. Tommy Vext, Flax Lewis, Straight Outta The Lair, out.